fifth story out front, George Zimmerman. He's asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer money. Well, today, Zimmerman's legal team said they plan to ask the state of Florida for a reimbursement of between $200,000 and $300,000 in legal fees. That would cover the cost of his defense team's expert witnesses, transcripts, and other expenses, which he rang up before he was acquitted for the murder of Trayvon Martin last month. David Mattingly is out front with the story.
There is nothing free when it comes to George Zimmerman's freedom. His defense team estimates Zimmerman's acquittal cost millions, and now Florida taxpayers could be paying part of the bill.
I just think it's absurd that he had to spend it. We had to spend it, the donors had to spend it, and that somebody shouldn't pay that back.
Florida Law 939.06 makes it clear a criminal defendant who is acquitted doesn't have to pay court costs or fees. Zimmerman's attorney, Mark O'Mara, says that includes fees for transcripts and experts who testify. So, how much? $200,000, maybe $300,000. O'Mara says blame the prosecutors.
I wish somebody would say, why is no one calling up the state attorney's office and saying, how dare you prosecute somebody for a charge there's no way you could ever convict?
We did contact State Attorney Angela Corey's office for comment. We were told the state attorney's office will respond to the request in the proper arena, the courtroom. Zimmerman has to make a case for his reimbursement, and he may not get everything he's asking for. But whatever taxpayers pay, added to the bill they're already picking up for jury costs, court security costs, and the costs to the city of Sanford. A list of expenses the Orlando Sentinel recently estimated at $902,000. And all of the numbers that are being thrown around right now, they do not include the big number, which is what George Zimmerman actually owes his attorney. Mark O'Mara believes that just based on his billable hours, George Zimmerman owes him about $1 million, which hasn't been paid. And that goes also for other attorneys working on this case. Jessica?
Ooh, that is a lot of money. David, what kind of reaction have you heard from Trayvon Martin's family?
We reached out to them for a comment through their attorney, but we did not hear back from them today. I did have a very interesting conversation, though, with the state agency that is actually in charge of writing these checks to defendants who are acquitted. And it was quite an eye-opener here. Not only are the attorney's fees not covered under the state law here, so George Zimmerman has to deal with his own attorneys on that, but since 2004, when this law went into effect, there have been very few payouts at all to defendants in the state of Florida, at a rate of only about 5 or 6 cases a year where they actually provide any money to any acquitted defendant. In fact, since this law has been into effect, they've only paid out about $55,000. That's since 2004. So now you have a case where they're asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can bet there's going to be a fight here.
Ooh, it'll be an interesting test of the law. Okay, thank you, David. Interesting report. Janet Johnson is a criminal defense attorney and a former prosecutor based in Florida who can tell us a little bit more about how this one's likely to play out. Hey, Janet, we haven't heard from Trayvon Martin's family, but there's already plenty of upset over this. How common are these requests for reimbursement?
You know, David just said that they don't get paid out very often, but most defense lawyers don't know it exists, and they don't ask for it. But the Justice Administration Commission, which is the committee that they just talked about, they are required to do it. And the law says that a defendant is not liable if he's not guilty. And I think Mark made a great point. My clients, after I get a not guilty, say, why don't I get more money back? Why am I not getting your fees? Why am I not getting my pain and suffering? I'm not guilty. And quite frankly, a defendant is entitled to it.
So I'm reminded of another high-profile Florida case, in the Casey Anthony case. Now, she was acquitted of the murder of her daughter, Kaylee, but she was convicted on 4 lesser counts of giving false information to investigators. Now, David says that there were no payouts of more than $55,000, but she was at least at one point, the state said she should be at least partially reimbursed. So my question is, she should be partially reimbursed for her defense costs. So my question is, what does that tell us about what is likely to happen in the Zimmerman case?
Well, she actually utilized another provision. There's a way to be declared insolvent, meaning you're saying, look, I can afford to pay a lawyer, in that case, Jose Baez, but I can't afford to pay for depositions, travel, transcripts. And if you don't bond out, which she didn't, she was in jail, most people get that. I have clients that get that all the time. And that same commission that we just talked about, they're the ones responsible for paying that out as well. And she got $120,000 of her costs paid. And that was before we knew if she was guilty or not guilty. So even if she had been convicted of murder, she would have not had to pay that money back. And the state of Florida paid for her lawyers to take depositions, to order transcripts, and they were only denied about $12,000. So the JAC objects, but most judges, they grant it.
Do you think Florida taxpayers could be on the hook for $1 million in George Zimmerman's legal bills?
Well, when you say Florida taxpayers, that would be me. And yes, I think I'm going to have to pay quite a bit of money, not $1 million, because we're not going to pay Mark O'Mara's attorney's fees. Florida does not allow that. Some states do. In Washington, if you're found not guilty and it's self-defense, they pay for everything. So it's a big bill.
We'll see how this one plays out. I have a feeling there'll be a lot of interest in it. Thanks so much for your time.